Hello, folks, and welcome to today's edition of OctoChats with myself, Sarah, and joined with me today is Michael. Michael, welcome to the show.
Hey Sarah, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Good, thanks. I've survived the week. It's been a productive week. What about yourself?
Well, yeah, me too. I've literally survived the week. It's a Friday night over here in Australia, so calling it done.
I know. What time is it? Because I think we've kept you up tonight to have you on the show, haven't we, Michael?
It's about 11 here, but what a perfect way to end the week chatting to you. So
Awesome. Looking
I'd be
forward to it,
doing
and
something
thank you.
completely unproductive if I wasn't here with you. So
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. For anybody watching in, please do hit us up with your comments, any questions that you have. Let us know what your thoughts are on the news we're about to share with you today. We're happy to get into the discussion with you, and potentially we might have some swag to give away. So use that comments box wherever you are. Now, we're going to cover off a bunch of things. We're going to cover off some Octopus news. We're going to cover off community news, and then some industry news that Michael and I have found and thought that would be quite interesting to discuss. Now, one thing that we kind of wanted to cover off in terms of Octopus first, Michael, was a kind of upcoming release that we have here at Octopus on some improvements and new features. What can we share without getting our knuckles wrapped from the big boss?
yeah, we've got the Q3 release coming out in a couple of weeks, and you just asked me before the show if we're allowed to share this, and the answer is I have no idea. So we're going to ask for forgiveness, not permission. But so there's a couple of pretty neat things coming in this release, though. So one of the big ones is we've extended the config as code support in Octopus to include variables now, which is a massive increase in that feature. The original cut only had the deployment process version controlled, and easily the most requested addition was to include variables as well.
Yep.
So that's happening. Something else cool that's coming into it, I think, as an early access program, is we're bringing in these DevOps insights. So now on your projects, you'll be able to see things like the deployment frequency, mean time to recovery, lead time. And I think these sort of statistics, which Octopus has always had the data for, that we just haven't exposed, you'll now be able to see for your projects. So I think that'll be really interesting too. I've actually enjoyed looking at those for our internal projects. It's been really interesting, and I think it's helped us improve a few things as well. We've got a ServiceNow integration coming for those of you who live in change management land and like your deployments change controlled. So that's pretty great too. I think they're the big ones for the Q3 launch.
Awesome. And I think if anybody wants to kind of keep up to date with that, either head over to octopus.com/roadmap. You can find out what we're planning, and I think subscribe to hear when we launch that, because I don't think we can tell when the launch date actually is. Or head over into our Slack community. So octopus.com/community. No, sorry, /Slack. And you can join our community and start to talk about that as well. One thing I did want to highlight, Michael, is a program you and your team are looking for some information about containers so that you can try and support containers better inside Octopus. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. We've been doing some interviews with people who deploy containerized applications, and we're definitely looking for more people to chat to as well. So they've been really interesting to hear what people do, actually. And I'll refer back to that a little later in the show when we talk about a few other things, I think. But yeah, we'd love to talk to you if you do deploy containerized applications.
Is it only people that use Octopus you want to talk to, or are you open to talking to anybody that does containerization and looking to do deployments with that?
No, we'd love to talk to a few non-Octopus users as well. That would be excellent. Yeah.
Awesome.
Both very welcome.
Awesome. Well, if you want to chat to Michael and the team about that, on screen is a link to book some time in their calendars. So head on over there and chat to the team. I'm sure they'll be happy to hear your thoughts, and hopefully it'll help with the deployments in future Octopus versions as well. Now, moving on to community news. It's been a while since we've all probably been to in-person events, and things are slowly starting to open up, both locally and internationally. I know you were recently at your first conference since the pandemic, Michael. What conference was that you were at?
I got down to the NDC event in Melbourne, Australia here, and yeah, it was the first in-person event I'd been to since late 2019, I think. So
Oh,
it was
wow.
so good to I loved it. Yeah, and
Brilliant.
NDC always
Any
put on.
highlights there or?
Geez. Look, honestly,
Oh,
the highlight I think was just the general vibe was just everyone I think was excited to be back at in-person events. Everyone was very keen to talk, and it was yeah. NDC always put on amazing events, and this was no exception. So it was excellent.
excellent. And I think our team, the Octopus team, are actually heading to NDC Oslo at the end of September as well. So if you're there, pass by the booth, say hello to the team. And again, I'm sure they're going to have some fantastic swag at the booth as well. One event we are attending here in Scotland in a few days' time, actually this time next week, we will all be at Data Scotland, which is a data conference here in Scotland. It's been running, I think, for about 5 or 6 years now. And even though I'm not a data expert and it's not my expertise, I do love going along just to hear what everybody's talking about and learn something new. So the Octopus team will be there, and we're sponsoring the event, and I'm actually presenting. So I'm presenting about how to present and create great demos for your presentations. So that's a brand new talk for me. So I've been practicing that. My voice is going hoarse from all the practicing I've been doing. Yeah, I think I've forgotten how much actually presenting takes out of you physically. The stamina you need to stand up there and do like a 50-minute presentation. It's been a while since I've done something that long. But yeah, looking forward to it. Should be a good event for everybody there. So come say hello at Data Scotland. The one big announcement we've also had is that Microsoft Ignite have released their dates for their event. And have you been to an Ignite conference before, Michael?
I have, but many years ago now. It must be nearly a decade ago now, I think. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, this time the team are running a kind of 2-day hybrid event. So it's going to be on the 12th to the 14th of October. Now, I believe some people will get the chance to go to Seattle where it's being held and actually be in person.
Nice.
But there's also going to be some hybrid kind of locations. I believe there's going to be one in the UK. I'm not sure where else there's going to be one, but definitely check it out, sign up, see what the teams are doing, because there is potentially a chance to be in person somewhere around the world and get to meet up with your colleagues and that. So always fantastic to be involved. And I'm sure Microsoft will be announcing lots of different things and no doubt a few name changes to confuse us all as well. So looking forward to that now as well. Now, one thing, while we're talking about things that are very confusing, I'm sure we've all found like search engines very confusing when we search in for things and we get crazy results that throw up pages that are just about spamming or trying to advertise something else. And what I noticed in the news this week is that Google are apparently changing their algorithm. They're going to try and improve it so that when you search for something, you actually get content that people have created and not just bots and spam bots. So this is kind of interesting. I think they're trying to put up higher content in your search engines that people have created themselves, and again, not been bots or advertisements. So we shall see. It'll be interesting to see how this comes about. I don't know how we test if this comes about or not. I guess we just have to trust them to a certain degree.
It says something when Google have to tell us that they're improving the search engine, doesn't it? Because if they hadn't I would have assumed that is what they do pretty regularly as well.
You would like to think. Yeah, it's definitely an art form to know how to use the search engines, I think, regardless of which search engine is your choice. Getting the right results is part of it. I think even...
What do you use personally, sir?
I have different profiles. So I have browser profiles set up, and I have one that uses Google, and then I have one that uses Bing, because again, I get different results with both of them, and both of them offer different takes on the same search query. So I always search twice, Michael. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. What about you?
Yeah, like a human A/B test. I like it. These days I use DuckDuckGo for my personal one, but for work I still use Google. So I use two search engines too. I would have said that was uncommon, and yet here we are both doing that. So yeah.
I know. I think when I was working at Microsoft, Bing was actually great because it integrated not only with the internet, but also the internal systems that we had. So it could plug into the SharePoint. So it would
Yeah.
throw up internal searches and I could get answers there as well as the external one. So that's really good if you are using that kind of Office 365 and Microsoft backend ecosystem and having Bing as your search engine. So yeah, I guess there's pros and cons with every kind of search engine, I suppose.
Yep. Absolutely.
Now, Michael, you have found a plethora of fantastic news for us this week. So do you want to take it away and tell us what you found?
Yeah, so one thing that I saw just today, actually, that came through a piece of news saying Heroku was retiring their free plans. And so Heroku, to me, I first became aware of it many, many years ago. To me, it was kind of the Ruby on Rails. I guess the Netlify of Ruby on Rails was
Yep.
one way to think of it. And yeah, seeing they got acquired by Salesforce, I believe, recently, and yeah, finally closed down their free plans. And I felt the reason they gave in this post was that they were spending a lot of effort battling fraudulent use of the free plans. And I felt a lot of sympathy because, yeah, at Octopus, we had the same problem with our Octopus cloud platform as well. And yeah, those plans have just ruined everything good for everyone. I feel like is the story here. So,
Yeah, I guess that's always the challenge for a lot of companies, providing a service that allows people the chance to play and try out their service for free, but also avoiding misuse of it when you do offer those free plans. So interesting to
it's
see
such
how
a shame
they.
because as a customer, it's amazing when you get free use of
Yep.
these plans. But yeah, everyone we've spoken to that runs any sort of SaaS platform that lets you execute, I guess, user supplied content on it has just been
Yep.
fighting a war for recent years against the crypto miners. So yeah.
Yeah, well, hopefully someone will come up with a good solution that works for everybody, but we'll see. But yeah, oh well, good stuff. So you also found a really good state of the cloud survey, didn't you?
Yeah, so HashiCorp put out this their state of the cloud strategy survey, and we tend to watch things like this because they're interesting. And there was a couple of interesting, I guess, headline numbers in this that just jumped out straight away that I found quite interesting. And so one of those was, it says, well, actually, first, this says 86% of these companies have a cloud platform team, which I thought was pretty interesting in general. And you
Yeah.
mentioned the same thing before the show. It seems like a lot, doesn't it?
Yep. Yeah. Although it'd be interesting to understand if the definition of cloud platform team, like, is that the new industry standard? Is that what we're now calling DevOps engineers, or is that something completely different? That would be.
Right. So we got rid of our data centers to move to the cloud, so we didn't need operations teams anymore. Have we just replaced them with cloud platform teams? Is this what it is now? But this number actually resonates as true with me from the customers that we talk to as well. It is a very common pattern now, and I think it's just the reality. If you want to hold these technologies like Kubernetes, and you can't expect every application team to be experts in them, so they end up with these cloud platform teams to run them. Which is an interesting trend. I think the other number that jumped out here was the number of customers that were running multi-cloud, according to this. So where did they say? What was the number in
I
here?
think it was 81%, I think, choose it.
81%.
Which is,
Right.
yeah, that's interesting. I think actually looking at the numbers here, it says 76 said they were already multi-cloud and 86 said they would be multi-cloud within 2 years. And I'll be honest, I struggle with the multi-cloud strategy for companies. I don't understand what benefits they're giving and what I think they're just adding, for me, complexity when there's no need. But I don't know if that's the same view you potentially have, Michael, or if all these 86% people are right and I'm wrong.
I mean, my initial reaction was how many of them actually use it versus kind of stumble into it accidentally. You
Yep.
either acquire a company that uses the other cloud, or a few development teams here and there go rogue and choose the other cloud provider, and you just end up with this. But I'm sure there are lots of valid reasons to do this too, redundancy or whatever. But yeah, it's an expensive way to achieve a complicated way, I guess, to achieve redundancy. It also probably helps explain that first number, the number that have cloud platform teams. Maybe that makes more sense now as well.
Yep, for sure. I think definitely when we look at the IT industry, it's changed, because I think when I started, lots of people were generalists, so they covered a whole variety of things, and you could actually, because products didn't change for maybe 3 or 5 years. Really, there was obviously minor changes, but version changes and things like that didn't change. But now I think we're moving towards specialists. So you, like you said, you can't be an application developer and then understand all the bits and pieces that pop around that. And I think that's why we're starting to see like security teams, you're starting to see cloud platform teams, and then proper application developers, and having that specialism across the board. And by the looks of it, we look like we're going to have like cloud platform experts in one cloud and then others in other clouds to be able to suit this hybrid or multi-cloud model that they're having.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, maybe this also plays a part in the rise of technologies like containers and Kubernetes as well. Just the way that they let you standardize the way the applications are hosted, it does open up the option to be able to run them in whichever cloud you like. Which, yeah,
it's definitely interesting. Keeps us all in a job and keeps us challenged every day, for sure.
Yeah, it's actually excellent for, like, we work at Octopus, obviously, and the more clouds you use in your organization, the better for us, really, because we're happy to support all of them.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Awesome. Now, talking about containers, you found a cool new way from .NET to just right-click publish and push your applications into a container image, haven't you, Michael?
Yeah, so this again, just saw this today too. So the .NET command line now, the .NET publish command, you can now publish .NET applications directly to a container image. So this wasn't previously possible. You could publish to a NuGet package or a zip file, but if you wanted a container image, you had to write a Docker file and build it, and no more. And so I found this quite interesting and appealing. And when we shared this news in our internal Slack, some of the reactions were quite funny. A few people, I guess, equated this to kind of the right-click publish, thing, and I guess thought it might be demoware more than useful, as in it's very helpful just to get started with, but then once you outgrow it, you end up with something that you don't actually understand how it worked in the first place. And I don't tend to agree with that. I actually think this is a pretty convenient way, and if it saves me from having to write another Docker file from scratch, I'm all for it. I think of it as just like publishing to a new, to be honest, as publishing to a container image. So yeah.
I suppose it's a good way of avoiding having to write YAML and fighting with the missing comma or exclamation mark or whatever it is, or indentation that we always miss and get wrong when we're doing that kind of stuff.
Correct, and maybe I didn't actually respond this in the Slack channel, but I did think, because the accusation was that, you end up with something that you don't know how it works. Every time you need a Docker file, you just copy and paste it from somewhere else, don't you? Does anyone know how that works? I don't know.
Very true.
Maybe I shouldn't admit that.
Yeah, actually, I can't remember the one last time I wrote a Docker file from scratch. It's always been, I remember someone else has one that I can copy and paste.
Absolutely, right. I think every piece of YAML in the world is copy and pasted from somewhere else, isn't it?
Very true. Very true. That's the one bonus of having lots of open source projects nowadays. There's lots of material out there to learn from, and not steal, but to learn from.
What's the GitHub AI thing? I should have just asked it to write my Docker files for me.
Copilot, yep.
Copilot. Hey, Copilot, can I have a Docker file, please?
I wonder if it's any better at writing Docker files for us or not. That would be an interesting challenge.
Clippy for Docker files. Nice.
Awesome. Now, you've also found something new that I'd never heard of. What is Dagger, Michael?
Yeah, so actually speaking of Docker, so Dagger is this new tool from some of the team behind Docker, and its pitch, as you can see there, is a new way to create CI/CD pipelines. And I'm guessing, I could be wrong about this, but I'm guessing the name Dagger comes from a play on the word, but like DAG, the directed graph, because the idea is you create these workflows and their graphs. And so the interesting thing about this to me, their kind of pitch here is that you can run these workflows you create locally, which I must admit is really appealing. So a lot of the problem today, like if you go and write your CI in GitHub Actions or in Octopus, to be honest, as well for the deployment, you can't run the workflows locally to test them. So you end up having to commit code or push packages or whatever to run and test. The idea behind Dagger is that you can actually run that locally and debug it, which is really nice. The other thing that's quite compelling about it to me is that I guess you call them jobs, whatever you call the stages in it, they run inside container images. So you get the tooling there as well. So it in theory can run anyway. If it works locally, you ship it to your build server and it'll just work there as well because it's all running in containers. So I've got to admit, those two things are enough to perk my interest, and I'm definitely going to watch the project closely and see where it goes.
Nice. I guess I wonder if this is helping people to learn containerization, or is it taking away the need to know how containers work? Does that make sense, Michael? Is it taking away the learning?
I think it's leveraging the power of it for another use case here, because getting when you're writing a build pipeline like that, one of the real challenges has always been having the right tooling there to be able to run it. So you run it locally and it works, but then you send it off to your build server and it doesn't because it's missing, I don't know, whatever, the .NET command line or whatever it is that you need to run the thing. Whereas this solves that problem with containers, which feels quite elegant. It's the old, it works on my machine, so we'll ship my machine problem, I guess, but just applied to CI workflows, which I'm all for.
Nice. And the last bit of news you've got is around Azure Container Apps. What is that news you've found for us, Michael?
Yeah, so this is it's a real theme here. I just realized I didn't deliberately do the containers theme, but I guess it's where my head's been lately, so maybe that helps explain it.
Yep.
This is the latest way to host containers in Azure. So previously they've had a few different iterations of ways to host. This is the latest, and it's based on Kubernetes under the hood, but it abstracts all of that away from you. So it's actually quite a nice model they've got. I've played with it a little bit. You essentially just publish your container image to a registry, and it pulls it directly from that. That is the deployment. And yeah, you can run multiple images to make up your application. And yeah, it's I guess it's an alternative now to an Azure App Service or Kubernetes. It's yet another way to run containers, but I found it to be quite an elegant solution. What's the joke that AWS has like 17 different ways to run containers in AWS? I think Azure might just be trying to catch up with them here as well. So not quite there yet. But
so does this take away some of the management then that you might have to look after? So is this more like Kubernetes or containers as a service versus AKS, where you kind of have to run most of it yourself, or have I completely misunderstood all of this?
No, I think that's a nice description of it. I think it's based. Actually, it's always the way I think it was designed to go. Is that other platforms would come along and build on top of Kubernetes. It's Kubernetes, but I guess cut down and simplified a little bit for people who don't need every knob and dial that Kubernetes provides, which is again pretty compelling.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. I guess it's hopefully they'll bring out like a flow chart for us to decide which like container service we use on Azure, so that we don't have to fight over it. But
actually at that NDC event down in Melbourne, one of the presentations down there was on exactly this: how to choose which Azure service to run it on. I went along to it. It was good. You're right. It needs a decision chart. Does it?
For sure. Nice to have choice, but well, Michael and I were talking about this actually before we started the show, and how we end up just flicking onto like a streaming service and watching trailers and trying to figure out what movie to watch, and then never actually watch a movie. And we wonder if that's because we have too much choice nowadays, isn't it?
Right, and I was saying there's like this optimal, there's some sort of theory behind this that humans, there's an optimal amount of choice. We want some choice, but we don't want too much choice. So yeah, maybe the 17 ways to run containerized apps is slightly too much, but a few different options is
Would
probably
be good.
good.
Awesome. Cool. Well, this has been really fun, Michael. I've learned a lot around the container space. Definitely some ideas to go and learn and dig in deeper. So thank you so much for staying up late and joining us on OctoChats. It's really been great. I will flash that little link up for folk to, if you do want to talk to Michael about containerization and deployments and share some thoughts about how Octopus can do it better, or even just have, I imagine, a chat around the industry and where we're going with it, Michael and his team would be more than happy to do that. So click on the link that's, I can't point, I don't know where, yeah, down there. Yeah, reach out to Michael, have a chat. I'm sure he'd love to talk to you. But yeah, thank you so much, Michael. Really appreciate it.
It was a pleasure, Sarah. Thank you for having me. Happy
Excellent.
to spend my Friday night here.
Awesome. And we'll be back next month, or I'll be back with another willing guest or volunteer chatting to me with the news. So stay tuned for that as well. And we'll see you then, folks. Bye.